A 14-member team of investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board has visited the site of an Amtrak derailment in the U.S. state of Montana that killed 3 people and left several persons hospitalized. The train was carrying about 141 passengers and 60 crew members and had 2 locomotives as well as 10 cars, 8 of which derailed. The team, including investigators and specialists in railroad signals, is looking into the cause of the accident.
Well, a little earlier, we caught up with the RISE correspondent ROTIMI KADE. We began by asking him about the deadly train crash in the U.S. state of Montana.
The National Transportation Board in the United States is sending about a 14-member committee to assess the situation, which includes investigators and, of course, specialists in road signals and other disciplines to actually investigate the cause of the crash. The cause of the derailment, as we speak, is still very much unknown, and what we know so far is that the derailment occurred sometimes around 3:55 p.m. On Saturday, and other trains and equipment were involved. And so far, 3 people were reported dead and 50 people were injured. Many of the injured have been ferried to the nearest hospitals, and the rest of the people are now in the hotels. But still a developing story. More news will be coming out shortly as we get more information from the coach owners. That's the Amtrak.
Indeed, Rotimi, you don't hear too many stories of derailment in that part of the world. Now, moving on to the Russian foreign minister, he's urging the U.S. to revive the stalled nuclear talks. What do you make of this?
Well, I think it's a good call from the Russians because obviously they would like to see Iran back, to the table. But you know that sometimes around April, the talk actually resumed preliminarily. The preliminary talks, I should say. And of course, sometimes a month later, the talk was stalled because of some few disagreements that both parties couldn't really, agreed on. However, I think since the elections of the new president, Ibrahim Raisi, the hardline president's statement after his inauguration further, endanger the talks going forward. And the U.S. seems not to be interested in resuming the talks. And I think our time is running out on Iran, as it were, because the sanctions that are already on them is crippling the economy. And Russia believes that with U.S. being actively involved, things could be done to ease the sufferings of the Iranian people. However, Iran is also not making things very easy because they have been making secretive, progress in enriching uranium in some of their labs, and U.S. and other Western nations are angry about that if you want us to resume the JCPOA deal, there's a need for Iran to act responsibly.
And Rotimi, given all that you've said, Iran, though, needs the deal in order to lift crippling sanctions. Do you think the deal will eventually be revived?
Yeah, most likely. I think the deal can be revived, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of, commitments on the part of Iran, because the Biden administration actually said initially that they're ready to resume talks with Iran, but with some conditionalities. But as it's where right now, the Biden administration have been very silent, very reluctant to go back to the negotiating table. Perhaps maybe they want to push Iran to the edge, where Iran will now say, okay, we are ready to resume talks. But Iran, it doesn't also help matters because they're not giving that green light so far. Though recently, that was yesterday, up until yesterday, Iran's foreign minister, Amir Abdul Rahim, said the talks would resume very soon, but there's no timeline to that very soon.
Indeed, Rotimi, but briefly, Russia is pushing for these talks, but realistically, what does it have to gain from it?
Well, Russia doesn't, I really don't, in my opinion, I don't think Russia has a lot to gain from the talks. But in some ways, Russia has been playing the devil's advocate since this talk began. And one of the frustrations of, former President Trump, he pulled out of the deal because there were outside forces that were pushing Iran the opposite direction. And Russia can, deny that they were not, in support of Iran's, enrichment of uranium. But in some ways, you see them being, a little bit supportive of Iran's cause. And I think this time around, Russia will definitely may have some things to gain, because if the talks resumes, obviously they will be able to open up to Iran's and healthy economy.